Stephen.
Andrew.
Do you fancy spending a quiet night inside number 9?
Of course.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, mate.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm not going to beat about the bush. It's Christmas. This is the first time we've been able to do a proper Christmas special where we date the episode, appropriately, because we have a Christmas special episode of Inside Number 9 to talk about, which aired last night. So, yeah, I don't care.
No one was questioning it. That feels quite aggressive.
Sorry, and no one's complained. Yeah, I just feel like it's just nice to be able to record, a Christmas episode, and it to feel like there's something appropriate to talk about, because The Bones of St. Nicholas was directed by George Kane, produced by Kim Crowther, written by Steve Pemberton and Rhys Shearsmith, and it first aired on Thursday the 22nd of December 2022. And it's a Christmas special. Standalone episode at the start of Series 8. Series 8, Episode 1.
Does that mean we've got another 6 episodes after this then?
Or
for
5?
Series 8?
Probably.
Or is it... Yeah. Is this like Devil of Christmas was?
I think so, like a kind of prelude to Series 3?
Devil of Christmas was Series 3. Yeah. I think so.
And then the rest will follow at some point later in the year. But we weren't alive to... Well, the podcast wasn't alive for that moment with Devil of Christmas. So we like, this is new territory for us, isn't it? So
it is.
So Dr. Parkway's late wife booked him in for a champing stay at an old church. He wants to be left to his thoughts and memories, but unfortunately for him, a plethora of characters just won't leave him have a moment's peace. Turns out the stories are perhaps trying to warn him. But about what?
A champing stay. Sounds awful.
Champing is apparently a thing.
I had doubts, but then people do anything these days, don't they? Anything.
And so we were talking before we started recording about portmanteaus that are not equal in their sort of division of labour. And I think this is an example of that, because it would at least be chumping or chirmping.
Chirmping. That sounds like a completely different thing.
And I mean, it sounds worrying, whatever it is. But like champing, all you've done is added the H.
Yes.
That's not enough as far as I'm concerned.
No. But then the words aren't equal in length either to start with. Should there be like a proportional representation of each word in the portmanteau? It's got to be in the same ratio of. Do
you have any better suggestions for this particular one?
No, I'll let you know if anything suddenly comes to me.
Yeah. And likewise, if anyone has any better portmanteaus, then send them to the Church of England at gmail.com.
Excuse me, I've just been draining a kidney. You're Mr. Parkway, I take it?
Dr. Parkway, yes. You must be Mr. Wilson.
Oh, call me Dick. Everyone does. So, have you ever been champing before?
Sorry?
Champing. Camping in a church. That's what we call it. Though it does have unfortunate connotations of someone eating with a mouthful.
No, I haven't actually. My wife booked this as a Christmas present, but sadly...
As I'm sure you're aware, it costs a pretty penny to preserve these buildings, and champing is our biggest money spinner.
Yeah, thoughts on this episode? Let's just go in with... And I feel like, with a Christmas special, there's a different expectation. There's a different need, a kind of a different spirit with which you receive a TV show, maybe. Is that the case for you?
Yeah, I guess it's a bit different with an anthology program anyway, because it doesn't really matter. I know that when I'm watching with series, I generally like a Christmas one to be able to be watched as a standalone one, and I will cycle through and watch the Gavin and Stacey Christmas special just at Christmas time and The Office and all of those sorts of things, because yeah, you're right, there is an expectation there. But I guess with this, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't need to be part of an arc because it's a standalone anyway. And I didn't really expect, I didn't have any certain expectations around it being a Christmas one other than seeing the title and seeing Bones of St. Nicholas. And it's not like The Devil of Christmas was something different that stands outside of the rest of them.
No.
As far as I'm concerned anyway. Like, and I was thinking along the same lines, really.
Yeah.
Were you not?
No, I was. But the different, because I love The Devil of Christmas, but I didn't see it at Christmas. So I don't know what time of year was the first time I saw that, but it wasn't a problem not seeing it at Christmas. And I don't think this one would be either. But I thought it was just a magnificently chilling episode. It was one, I sent you a message afterwards, like, that was intense. Like, it was massively sort of what's going to happen here. Very much. So well written. As I think just, I love the telling of ghost stories and the ability of certain people to tell a story in a way that just keeps you on tenterhooks. And certainly with Simon Callow involved in that, it was just like, this is a beautiful experience of receiving ghost stories in a way that just, and Reese, as Pierce, like, was almost my receiving, like,
your conduit.
He just played that role so well of like, yes, that's me. You're doing it.
There's a big gap in my notes when at the point when the story was being told, not because there was nothing to write down, but because at that point I was just sort of captivated. I was just so into that ghost story.
Yeah.
And it's horrible.
So good.
It's horrible. The tongue hanging down.
So the start is like this cold, wintry scene, a church, graveyard. There's Jasper wandering through the graveyard towards this church. Bit of haunting music, bit of music reminiscent of that Stakeout, How Do You Plead, and what's the one on the lake?
Merrily, Merrily.
Merrily, Merrily. That sort of Christian Henson string thing that alludes to something supernatural. That, and
also with
is there
him there lit up sort of at an angle with his briefcase, looking a bit exorcisty.
Yes, nice, yeah.
And it was a really nice shot, actually, with the light on him. The whole place looks beautiful, especially with the snow falling on it as well. It's a really nice setting.
Yeah, and I think with the kind of the blurb that they'd given ahead of time, the suggestion is we're going into a church, expect ghosts.
3 of them. There's something quite amazing about C of E churches at Christmas in the way that they manage to look very sparse yet very cozy at the same time, especially with that tree up at the front. It's weird. It does look cozy yet very bare, cold. It's nice.
No, it's not the sort of place you'd maybe want to stay the night, but
no. And that was the confusing bit. Without knowing what was going on here, he arrives to find a bed made up. What's going on here?
Yeah.
On pew number 9.
Pew number 9.
I've never seen a pew numbered.
Haven't you?
Like a gig.
Yeah, no, I've
pew
seen
9 seat.
I think a theme of this episode might be the fact that my dad was a vicar, and I'm kind of familiar with certain aspects of this episode feel very close to home. We'll get into that in the bell tower.
Okay.
Keep listening, ladies and gents.
You've been working on the audience retention stuff since our last episodes.
Yeah, pews were numbered.
Were they?
Yeah.
Why? What's the purpose?
Just so you
of
don't
numbered
lose one, I
pews?
suppose. Yeah. Just every...
Something's missing. Something's...
Are all the
what is
pews
it?
here? Come on. Unfortunately, they're always there, and they're very uncomfortable. Yeah, so that was... And not the most appetizing. Is that the right word? Like, what... When you see a bed, it's not appetizing. It's kind of sort of
Inviting?
inviting. Is that a cloak that he puts his hat on, or is that just really horrible looking sleeping materials?
Oh.
It's like the red material he put. He puts his hat on it. I'm not sure whether it's the sort of, maybe not important, but whether he brought his own cloak, I don't know.
Well, maybe he was planning, just wandering around in a red cloak, pretending to be the ghost of St. Nicholas. I don't know.
Could have been, yeah. So yeah, that the sort of introduction finishes, and
he's also wandering around, sort of running his hands over the relief carvings on
really
the tomb.
interesting, isn't it? Yeah, in a way that is more than just sort of getting a feel. You know how you might like, or
not on a tomb, no.
Maybe not on a tomb.
I wouldn't do that on a tomb.
No, you might be right.
There was a line later on with where Pierce talks about Da Vinci Code, and it did make me think a bit of that. Before that line had even been said, when he runs his hands over it, I thought some bad CGI was going to come up where he was joining some stuff together. And actually that kind of happens, not with bad CGI, but with relief rubbings later on.
Yeah. And then we meet Dick. So it's great when he's sort of like, as long as people pay their overnight fee, anyone's welcome into the church. It's like, I thought that was the case anyway with the church. It's like, anyone's welcome as long as they pay their overnight fee. What? And he's got his swiper. Which is a lovely touch.
It must be expensive because the wireless limit is now cardless limit thing is now £100, isn't it?
It is.
So it
now,
must be pricey for hanging out in this church, and it can't be that old because he mentioned Wordle.
That's what I was going to say.
Which
it's like,
dated it.
This is not a pre-Wordle world, so yeah, £100 is certainly the limit at this point. Yeah, so Canon Berryman, 85, got a Wordle in too. So I was really pleased to hear the reference to Wordle, given our previous references to Wordle, and
and Nindle.
Yeah, which has disappeared, unfortunately.
Oh, has it?
Yeah, I kept trying to play it, and I've been meaning to...
17 days in a row.
I've been meaning to say to Rob that I was disappointed to see that he didn't keep up his subscription. Or however, I don't know how you host those things, but I was playing every day, and it just disappeared. Yeah, so I was disappointed.
I've set up your bed here. Some churches put a full-size Queen Anne in the transept, but speaking personally, I don't think it's fitting. I said to Canon Berryman, I said, we're not an Airbnb. No, Dick, he said, we're a prayer C of E. 85 and sharp as a blade. Many a time I've seen him do a Wordle in 2.
Dick cut him off when he was initially trying to mention about his wife. And then he pushed it through again later when Dick then asked, is your wife going to be joining you? And he made some comment about her passing away and this had been a gift from her. And Dick offered to void the whole transaction and start again. No, it's okay. Please.
Yeah, it raises some interesting questions about the relationship between Dick and Jasper, or like Dick's expectation of who Jasper might be, even in the fact that he's double booked the two lots, because and we can get into this as we sort of unpack the story as it goes, but I think there's more to that. And there's more to what Dick is expecting from this evening than meets the eye, given the fact he's very, very close and probably sleeping or just sitting somewhere very, very close by.
He suddenly comes back in, doesn't he? Like it's not necessarily after he comes back after the phone call because they've seen the ghost. But before that, he just wanders back in, doesn't he? To say, should we have a sherry?
Oh, when he's up the bell tower, yeah. Yeah.
And also, I mean, Jasper seems incredibly insincere when he says the line about spending the night alone with his thoughts and memories. There's nothing heartfelt about that line delivery at all.
No.
Spend the night alone with my thoughts and memories.
Yeah.
It
was a classic Steve Pemberton delivery of
yes.
like there's something beneath this. Yeah.
Yes.
And you're wondering, is he lying about his wife? Actually, I noticed later on he does have a wedding ring on.
Oh, does
so, yeah, maybe there is a wife either alive or dead. But it's interesting in the next scene where, you know, he doesn't talk about his wife. He talks about his mum. And obviously they could both be dead. And it's not necessarily he's just changed his story. But
maybe
it's like,
his wife booked, or that would be a weird romantic getaway to the church where your mum's buried outside.
Yeah.
For the two of us.
Exactly.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And then this scene ends with, I'm sure you won't be alone. Merry Christmas, Dr. Parkway, and God bless us, everyone. And this is kind of setting up this expectation along with the blurb in the Radio Times or whatever. We're talking about ghosts. You know, it's
a Christmas Carol.
Exactly. Like, I don't think it's pretending to be anything else other than a ghost story, which is why it's quite interesting what it becomes, because it isn't necessarily a ghost story.
No.
But we'll get into the differences between ghosts and premonitions as we go, I'm sure. So, scene 3.
He gets out his maps and sets to work.
What were you thinking when he pulled them out of his bag?
It was this Da Vinci Code thing again. It was this church explorer who's after something. It was becoming clear that there was something in this church that he was looking for. Some sort of mystery that he was trying to unravel. That he clearly had visited other places, and this was part of that journey of discovery.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But sort of, more subtle than Tom Hanks.
Yes. Like I said, there's
fewer planes hanging out in the back garden. Yeah. And then there's there's those sort of haunting jingle bells. Like, again, the music comes in, like we're focused on the Christmas tree. There's that. Is there the red cloak at this point?
Yes. Yeah.
Which is not obvious on first watch, because all you see is a Christmas tree, and it could be just like a red frontal on something behind the Christmas tree or whatever. And then there's the moment of the bauble, which is massive. Like,
it is a big old bauble.
It's a big bauble.
Big baubles. And knowing that this was the title of this, The Ghost of St. Nicholas, The Bones of St. Nicholas, you see Santa's face and there you think, okay, we're off and running.
Yeah.
Here he is.
Yeah, and then the reflection in the bauble, the candle blows out, there's sort of a sense of, okay, there's someone else here, or there's the presence of something else here. And then that's interrupted by the door opening, in enter Pearson Posey.
Our lager, which art in barrels, hallowed be thy ale. Thy kingdom come, thy will be drunk. At home as in the tavern, give us this day our foamy head, and forgive us our spillages, as we forgive those who spill against us. Deliver us not into inebriation, for thine is the stout, the bitter, and the lager, forever and ever, barmen.
You're not funny, you know.
Of course I am. Hey, do you want to see my little white balls?
Pierce's character reminds me straight away a bit of the guy in Nana's party.
Yeah.
Like a younger version.
So Pat, yeah. I made a note of that.
And he was so proud of himself, and he is proud of himself with every single line he delivers.
Yeah. I think Pierce is quite an appropriate name, just popping in, like piercing the moment. It's beautiful. Yeah. So will the old man give them some booze? Because they've obviously had an encounter again with Dick. I'm not sure. I still can't quite work out how this has all gone as it has.
So they've booked online, even though Jasper's booked it out for himself. The booking has gone through online, and I assume there's some back and forth online, like with your host.
Yeah, there's something about a missed email, though, isn't it? Like Dick said he didn't see an email or something,
but you're right. There is something here about the setup with how Dick was dealing with Jasper that suggests this wasn't entirely a mistake.
Maybe he knows that Jasper is some sort of relic collector, as comes clear, or not comes clear, but like the kind of encounter that they have around that ghost story, and yeah, it's quite interesting.
I mean, I assume Jasper is he must be quite sort of underhand and deceitful and selfish about this whole thing, because there's no reason to be this way if you have an inkling and he's trying to keep this to himself, isn't he? He doesn't want anyone else to put all this together. He's spending a lot of time and energy on finding this thing.
Yeah.
It shouldn't, there's no reason this shouldn't be a fairly upfront thing.
That's true, yeah.
Funding through some sort of academic institute to allow you to just go around the country hunting this down. I don't really know why it has to be, like this.
Yeah, exactly. And another thing, because it's like it's the first time they've had a booking on Christmas Eve.
It's all theatre, isn't it?
And it's one man on his own, which is quite strange on a Christmas Eve. And also in a church so obviously enthusiastic about Christmas, not having like a midnight mass and not having service the following morning on Christmas Day.
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
So that's quite unusual, unless that's been sort of readied by someone like Dick, who's like, yeah, we'll catch the guy.
Well, when we get to the end, like, his reaction is not one of horror.
No.
When he finds what he finds, it's
like, yes, good.
Got him.
The trap worked perfectly. You did it beautifully. It's quite funny. But then I'm not sure how planned out it feels, even still. But
no.
So like moving on from where we got to, I think we got a little bit sidetracked there, or a little bit future tracked, a little bit of maybe premonitions to the something that we might.
It's not a premonition when you're talking about something that happens in the episode you've just watched and you're about to talk about.
No, mate. I don't understand these things. I'm confused. I've watched this episode a few times today. I'm still confused.
Pierce's incredible humour work is interrupted as Jasper appears and Posey exclaims, "Oh my lord!" To which Jasper replies, "Not quite, I'm afraid."
He arrives in the morning. Beautiful. It's like, yes, that's classic Steve Pemberton delivery of that line as well. And yeah, how he sort of talks about the fact he's got exclusive use of the church until 10 a.m. tomorrow. And she's like, use? What do you mean? What does use mean in this
Use a
context?
church.
What are you planning to use this church for? And that's when he sort of then goes into the mum is buried in the graveyard. And I wanted to spend the night here in quiet contemplation.
It does feel like he's just pulling anything out at this point, though, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Just something else.
Yeah.
I like their little side story. The reason why they're there is their Lapland visit was cancelled because there was no snow. And there's no point in going if you can't stay in an igloo.
You have to stay in a shed.
Oh, my Lord!
Not quite, I'm afraid. He arrives in the morning.
And he gave us a bloody heart attack. Are you the vicar?
No, I'm Dr. Parkway, Jasper, and I'm afraid I have exclusive use of this church till 10 a.m. tomorrow.
Use?
I should explain. My mother passed away earlier this year. She's buried out in the graveyard. I simply wanted to spend the night here in quiet contemplation.
Oh. And that's what's interesting about this episode is like, whose perspective are we seeing this from? Is it, what are these premonitions? What are these visions? Who is seeing them? How are they seeing them? And yeah, are they just stories they tell themselves, patterns that sort of retrofit something?
That's true.
Because even when he, like, we only see that sort of going back into those moments that we've seen as spooky moments after he's had that accident, really. I think there's like the bit just before he slips. But that's it. And then it's kind of like, okay, who's telling this story?
That is true because, well, I assume it's from him because if you think about the story that Posey tells, which kind of sets all that up, that was an experience that she had as a forewarning that something bad was about to happen to her. She had that experience of that vision that then became an echo of the future, whatever it ended up being. That was her. That was her getting a warning, and so that was Jasper getting a warning. There was someone mentioned online that this was very much reminiscent of a horror story written by M.R. James.
Mm-hmm. Mark Gatiss did a whole documentary about M.R. James.
Oh, did he? Have you seen it?
Yeah.
And this idea that people are in situations where if they go too far, this could end up happening to them. Mm-hmm. And this was him having that warning, and maybe that was him. I don't know, having this idea in his mind that something bad could happen here, and he was almost giving himself forewarning, and it was just it was all in his head as a sort of as a worry. What we actually saw there was his inner anxiety manifesting itself as a cloaked red figure.
And that's what I like about this, because it is ambiguous. Like, it doesn't have a completely coherent explanation.
Oh, I love that. I love lack of coherent explanation. I love ambiguous because there's nothing worse than when you try and make it work and actually it feels like a bit of a letdown. Mm-hmm. Because you go, oh, it was just that. Yeah. No,
I think that's great.
Leave them wanting more.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I think that's great. And that is really interesting that it's those stories that you tell that then fit, like, because it's the chilling aspect that, like, when Posey tells her story and it's like, ooh. And when Dick tells his story, and then Pierce is quick to say, so now do you believe in ghosts? And it's like, well, no, that was a great story. But why would that make me believe in ghosts? Like, I've had a great time listening to that story. He's a very good storyteller. But that doesn't convince me.
No.
But part of the fun is...
I've read My Little Girl Funny Bones many times. And I don't think that there are skeletons living in a cellar. No matter how well I've read that story, I'm not convinced about skeletons living in a cellar.
He's such a cynic. Always be specific. Rich teas.
Nice biscuit.
Worse than Nice's.
I saw someone complaining at Reese about slagging off nice biscuits.
And then there's a quest for a kitchen, because obviously there's a lot of lady vicars nowadays.
He's just Pat, isn't he?
He is Pat. That is such a Pat line.
This is also after he's eaten all the communion wafers.
I love that relationship as well. There's something really, really beautiful about the way they are together.
You say this, but one of the most horrible moments this episode is where she's just told that story about the accident and the premonition, and then the phone rings and they go and pick up the phone, and then he tells her it's for her and then goes at her and scares the shit out of her. It's a horrible thing to do.
But I thought, in the context of an episode where we've got a lot of music, there's a lot of atmosphere, like, as viewers, we're seeing this differently to how they would be experiencing it in the moment itself, where they've got the real atmosphere from the fact they've just been told that ghost story, and she's just bared her soul about. I think that might be the nice thing to do in that situation, because it diffuses that kind of tension that might have built up. Like, if the problem, we're expecting ghosts as viewers, we're expecting ghosts, we're expecting the worst.
They're expecting ghosts following that story and her story about her premonitions.
As participants in that.
If someone had done that to me, I would have punched them in the face.
Well, if Christian Henson was providing the soundtrack, maybe that's true.
If I was wearing in-ear monitors at all time during my stay.
But no, I just think that's actually quite a kind thing to do.
I can sort of see where you're coming from, but absolutely not.
I think, like, it's a dickish thing to do.
Dick move. That is.
Like, without doubt, it's a stupid thing to do. But at the same time, it's like, let's not sort of get ourselves as twisted into this whole ghost thing as we could do if we dwell on it too much. Because as we've explored, 5 minutes ago, neither of us believe in ghosts. So let's stop thinking about things through that lens. So let's use that phone call or that, newfangled thing that, where we're able to talk to other people through the air or whatever.
Newfangled machines where you talk to each other through the air.
Yeah.
I mean, this is also a man that thinks that it's a perfectly sensible explanation that someone called a wrong number at 3 a.m.
That's true. Yeah.
What?
And why, I wouldn't be answering that phone.
No, absolutely not.
It's clearly not for me because nobody knows I'm here. Why would I answer that?
What do you think the end game is of taking that phone call? You go, no, he's not here, or he's asleep.
Yeah.
Call back again in the morning.
Exactly.
So, you a religious man then, Jazz?
Not particularly, no. It's the building itself I'm most interested in.
All right, you're more like a history doctor then, Indiana Jones, Da Vinci Code stuff.
You could say that, yes.
Yeah, the whole thing was giving me Da Vinci Code vibes right from the off. And it was... Because that ends with in a church, and that church contains... What is it? Is it the remains of Mary Magdalene or something?
Something about it's
because there are survivors of Jesus's bloodline or something, aren't there?
I think so, and it turns out there's a child of Jesus.
There's a Jesus, yes, something like that. I can't remember, but that ends in a church, and it's this unassuming church in the English countryside which contains, nor the French countryside, somewhere that contains something really important. That's the link. And that's what this felt like right from the off, especially with his rubbings.
Yeah.
And it turns out very much the same, but without bad CGI floating around.
Just a little bit more Santa Claus.
Bit more Santa Claus, yes.
Tough crowd.
Oh my good godfathers!
Who is it?
I don't know. I just pulled back the curtain and he were there. I thought it was Paul Hollywood.
Well, you want him reaching out and giving you a handshake, would you?
It's St. Nicholas, the original Santa Claus.
You mean the Coca-Cola one?
little before that, I believe.
Well, the horrific face of Paul Hollywood. Definitely wouldn't want him to give you a handshake.
I enjoyed that as well.
Yeah, that was nice.
And this is... So, Jasper goes into like this weird mode here where it's almost like he sees an opportunity to try and scare him off and get rid. Because he starts sort of gleefully reciting this horrific story about the legend of St. Nick, about little boys being chopped up and put in salt to cure them. Not to make them better, because it wouldn't. To sell as meat. And then, I don't know, stating it as though it's a fact that people often hang pickles on their Christmas trees, which is something I've never heard of.
I'd not heard of, and then I went looking, and it seems like it may be, and we would love verification of this, a German thing.
This sounds like a Simon Woolley moment right now.
I'd be interested, like, if this is genuinely something like gherkins or pickles. Do you hang them on your Christmas trees? Or like symbolic versions of such things? Because I'd not come across this. The Grinch's cock.
I have not got a Grinch's cock on my Christmas tree.
No, and it's a peculiar derivation, pickling or preserving of a children's body in salt or vinegar. That reminds me, did we bring any crisps?
So he's doing his rubbings while Posey gives an amazing rendition of O Little Town of Bethlehem. I've never heard daffodils mentioned.
No, was that... yeah, I'm not sure. It made me think, is that in the original version?
Maybe it's the really original one. If you date it back far enough. Like when the 12 Days of Christmas had collie birds rather than calling birds. That sort of thing.
And then there's the talk of stockings.
Chekhov's noose. It's this ladders in the gusset.
So there's this moment where Posey's singing sort of disappears. And at that point, when I first watched it, I was like, is she a ghost? Is that what's happening here?
Are they a pair of ghosts?
And that's what I was wondering.
I mean, to be fair, that would be a good pair of ghosts. A bit like Statler and Waldorf in the Muppets Christmas Carol.
Yeah, like
just a comic pair.
They have a beautiful relationship. They're both wearing pretty similar things. Like they'd be a perfect pair of ghosts at this stage.
Actually, there's a whole story there where they had the tragic loss of a child, and as a result, they just decided that they'd be better off together forever. And now they roam empty churches.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. Oh, man.
Or maybe
everyone in this church is
Everyone's a ghost.
Yeah.
Even Jasper. Literally everyone is a ghost.
And Jasper's like a couple of ghosts. Haunting himself.
Like his feedback loop of ghosts.
Yeah, it's weird. And that's so it's this moment where like Posey's singing disappears almost like up the chimney and away. And then that's where Jasper sort of follows this figure up the bell tower. And he can hear someone up there, and it sounds like
choking, isn't it?
There's something about that moment where you're like,
what's he about to find up there?
And why is he going so willingly?
Yes, I would be giving that a wide berth.
Yeah, I'd be like, is that where the sound's I'm going to go the other way. I'll go the opposite direction.
Not for me. Thank you very much. Yeah. And shoe on the floor.
Shoe on the floor. And then he just sort of picks it up, places it on the side, and then climbs the ladder. Which
he doesn't go, this looks like one of mine.
Is it one of his? Is it a kind of a shoe that is his, or is it like a different sort of shoe to the point where he's like
size 9 black shoe?
And this is the thing, and this is where it becomes sort of a bit like, who's where and what's
Whose
going
shoe
on?
is it anyway?
Yeah.
Well, what, you don't like the physical object? Because we've had physical interactions with the environment. Like, he's knocked the bauble off. He's blown out the candlestick. Like, I don't.
But these are also things that Dick does. So Dick picks up so Dick encounters the bauble. Dick encounters the shoe. As if...
Does he?
Yeah.
Oh, you mean that later?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's like Dick goes through these same experiences. So what's the interaction? What's the relationship between Dick and Jasper in that respect? Because it's like,
but he's not quite having the exact same experiences, is he? Because the stuff's going on while Dick is there, but then Dick is responding differently to them, like his phone's ringing and things like. Because
no, they are
making the
different
phone ring.
experiences. Yeah, and they are different experiences. That's the thing that's like, because there's not a complete parallel, but there are
time travel.
Yeah.
So we're going.
It's a bit like that.
No. I prefer the supernatural anxiety dreams.
and that's where it is, like with premonitions. And I don't know enough about this sort of folklore where premonitions, because it's almost like premonitions, are they like the opposite of a ghost in that they lead to the event, whereas a ghost is after the event? So a ghost is the presence of the absence after the thing has happened, whereas a premonition is the presence of this thing until the thing happens.
The weird thing is that if it's going to be treated as though it's a warning to him not to carry on down this path, does that mean a premonition can cause the future to change? Because can a premonition make you change course?
Will it ever?
Or is
there any story where a premonition ends up with a change other than A Christmas Carol?
A Christmas Carol, there you go. In A Christmas Carol, it does, because he gets to see what would have happened. Well, I guess that sort of answers your question about the difference between ghosts and premonitions, is that they're different ghosts. The ghost of Christmas past, the ghost of Christmas present, the ghost of Christmas future or yet to come. And so is this a premonition ghost rather than a...
It's not a very helpful ghost, because it's not like... It's literally what he's about to do.
Yeah, but that's...
So it's kind of like...
But
he doesn't know it's him. So it's like...
No, that's true. He needs it to sort of arrive in the night and tell him very explicitly what's going on.
Yeah, and that's where Scrooge has an advantage.
Scrooge has some very obvious ghosts with no nuance who go, right, I'm your first ghost. I will be telling you why you're this way.
Yeah. I'm from your future. This doesn't have to be the way, but you have to change your current course of action.
All right, I'll give that a go.
Whereas for Jasper, it's like, shit, I need to get away from that thing, which is me in the future.
Oh my God.
Is, oh shit, I've become me of the future. Oh, now I'm dead.
But there isn't any necessarily a clue that it's going to end badly either.
That's the
apart from the sounds of choking and
yeah, but he doesn't know that's him.
No, and legs banging.
Because he's searching for someone perhaps he can help.
He could help them by not
doing what it, yeah. Because it's like when he opens that, like the bell room, the door to the bell room, the sound stops. And then that's when he stumbles on that shoe, starts walking up that ladder, which again created sort of flashbacks for me where the bell room in the church where my dad was the vicar, it was quite a scary, like it was a big church. It was, the bell tower was tall, So you'd go round and round and round and round and round and round and round up this tower. You'd get to the bottom room which is where you could control the 4 small bells. So that's where, like, I used to do a bit of like wedding bell ringing from there.
Nice.
It was like easy 10 quid. And then you'd go up to the next room, and then you could get up to the like roof, and there was a ladder which was just like the ladder in this episode, but one of the rungs was loose and it spun, so it was really petrifying to go up, because it was similar in that you're a long way up this tower. Mm-hmm. Everything is wooden, everything creaks, everything feels like, yeah, this could give way at any moment. You're going up this tiny ladder up to the roof. One rung, you didn't quite know which rung it was, but you stepped on it. It's like, okay.
The spinny rung. Which room contained the jaw of Santa Claus is what I want to know right now.
Well, yeah. You know, when he's walking that plank across, it's like, that is literally how these places are made. Like, there's nothing safe. There is nothing safe once you get beyond a certain point in these bell towers. It's just wooden planks that you're trusting.
So for people who do bell ringing as a hobby, to some extent, it's a bit of an adrenaline fueled.
Well, a lot of bell ringing is done. So that was like solo bell ringing. So like I would have 4 bells that I'd have to ring in a certain order. A lot of bell ringing is done at, I think, ground level, where people are just like tolling the big rope that controls one big bell that is like a long way up above their head. And so there's a lot of momentum that comes with that, so you've got to be quite strong to not get caught up with that. But at the same time, you're not standing on precarious ground when you're doing it.
It's solid.
Yeah.
So for those of you who tuned in this week on Christmas Day to find out about bell ringing, there you go.
Would you like to hear about it? Does involve a ghost.
Oh, now you're talking. Hey, Doc, pull up a pew.
I'd rather not, if it's all the same to you.
Oh, come on. Ghost story for Christmas? It's perfect.
I don't believe in ghosts, and I've no interest in made-up narratives about them.
I assure you, Doctor, the events I'm about to recount are not made up. I know that for certain. Well?
Seems like I don't have much choice, do I?
So Dick returns with a bottle of Bristol cream.
They sort of bringing us back into their little sit round the tree. Jasper's off still doing his thing.
Yeah, it's like
separate from everyone.
Yeah, okay, I'll come down. Oh no, he's caught up in his
back to
rubbing thing.
Rubbing again. And then this is where we get our explanation of, not explanation, I guess, but some insight into Pierce and Posey when they're asked if they have children. They give that sort of awkward no, and okay, there's a story there, and we get that later on, don't we? But then that's immediately kind of dissipated when Dick offers up a ghost story, which Pierce is well up for.
Which I love. Yeah.
Yeah, he loves it. And Jasper is not really up for it to start with. He gives some mealy-mouthed reason as to why he doesn't want to hear one. But then Pierce sounds very much like his Reese's character in Peter Kay. It's car share thing. Come on!
Yeah. It's really true.
Now and again I watch that.
Ghost story for Christmas. Perfect. Come on.
Pump that up.
Yeah.
That clip makes me cry on a regular basis.
So good. It is so good. It's like this perfect way to set up a ghost story.
Yes. And also it seems aimed at him, like you said earlier. Like there's a sense that this is being aimed at Jasper, and there is a reason why we're getting this.
And that's met by his response, which is like, seems like I don't have much choice, do I?
Mm.
And that, on reflection, feels like a multi-layered comment.
The phrase I've got written down here is Parkway peaked.
Yes.
His interest is peaked. And I like the fact the story starts and straight away there's a I'm just gonna stop you there before you try and pick this apart.
Yeah.
I didn't know it had a torch. And I also like Posey's segue into a story about a homeless man in the school gym inside the vault box.
Which was nice.
I think it was her that played the character in Dinner Ladies, who was quite similar. Sort of this simple character who was very caring and, yeah, would come out with those sorts of stories.
Right.
That was a long time ago. But yeah, this is where my gap in my notes is as the story started, because it is so good.
Yeah.
And it's like the build up, the imagery in it being so bleak and horrifying is, yeah. I don't think there was a lot of acting needed to be involved to be
it was amazing,
captivated by Simon Callow.
Such a great delivery of this story. Yeah. I mean, I wrote down some of the key points from the story. It's like this figure peeping out from behind the branches. A figure in a dark red cloak, head bowed. I wasn't expecting what I saw.
It starts to feel a bit like Dick was the figure through all of the beginning of this episode, and he was doing this to set Jasper up, doesn't it? Like he's being very specific with all this. And it's weird that Jasper's having premonitions that, I mean, I guess he's looking for St. Nick, and he knows what this figure of St. Nicholas looks like, and that's in his mind. I mean, we've already established we don't really know how this premonition ghost thing works. Yeah. But it is bizarre that we're getting a ghost story that is setting this up in entirely the same way. He's seeing the same things.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where it's interesting where you talk about Dick having the same experiences later in the episode and possibly before this episode in this church. Unless he's just all part of this warning.
The way I want to read it is that all of the characters are real. Mm-hmm. They're all there in the way that we kind of receive them. So like we're not dealing with any ghosts within the four characters that we encounter. I think that's helpful.
I don't think it would make sense in terms of them having their own personalities and their own stories and things that contribute to this,
and the way that they interact with each other, and everything like that doesn't make sense.
No.
So
I think I'd be irritated if they tried to pull a Sixth Sense on this.
Yeah, no, I think you've got to take them as given. And so it's like, head bowed. I wasn't expecting what I saw. His head slowly lifted up. It was so sad. An old man with kind eyes, but such pain behind them. Below this tender, imploring face, there was no bottom jaw, just a black, lolling tongue dangling down into the space below. Yeah.
That's horrific.
Like, so
I see the tongue as part of the bottom jaw. Personally, I think if you're missing your top jaw, your tongue's not there. Your bottom jaw, your tongue's not there either, because it doesn't come down from the top into your mouth, does it? And if your bottom of your mouth wasn't there, it would just hang. I feel like it comes up.
Yeah, so he's telling this story almost... Is he trying to scare... Who's he trying to scare? I think would be the question.
I think he just likes putting the shits up people, to be honest.
But why is he there for such a prolonged period of time?
This is the thing about the extent to which it's all manufactured, and I guess the what's the word? Motives. If he's trying to scare him off, I mean, okay, that's fine. Why does he need the other two in there? Unless they're there to try and put him off doing stuff.
Is he trying to lure him in to get him to show him where the jawbone is, and then
is he looking for the jawbone? He needs someone else.
I don't know.
Someone else who's done all the hard work, so he can have it.
Is that? Yeah, maybe that's the question.
But then why does he need the other two there? Unless that is just a side thing where that has just happened and by accident has worked out. Because he could do all of this without them, but maybe it is that he wants this. He wants it just like Jasper does.
I mean, he's very prepared to come in and tell a ghost story.
Yes.
And then, Pierce is so impressed. That was brilliant. I bet that shit you up, didn't it, Dom? Now you believe in ghosts. Well, why? Because someone's told a good ghost story. Then he goes into this sort of Nigel Squires from Riddle of the Sphinx style, like, we're pattern finding creatures.
Mm-hmm.
Rationalise what we don't understand with ridiculous stories.
What pattern leads you to that conclusion that you've seen a red cloaked man with his tongue hanging out of his top jaw? Oh, it's just how you interpret a pattern of events.
Especially as he's seen the exact same thing that same night as well. Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of like, okay, now we're in the realm of, please, I don't want to be like, yeah.
He's almost trying to convince himself as much as anyone else.
I think so. And that's where, he goes into the sort of, I want to spend the rest of the night in my own company.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's what he's done for years. And then this scene finishes with emphasis on the bottle of sherry.
Pierce wanting to know whether that was free. Yeah. So we've kind of been through this next scene where Pierce weirdly wakes up at 2:43.
Which adds up to
9.
Ah, nice. Well done.
I see. I wonder where you're going with that. Yes, it does add up to 9, right? Good call. And Posey's awake. And she's just sort of
very awake.
She is very awake. She's sort of just sat with her thoughts, isn't she? And she's lit a candle for Paisley. And this, I assume, is the child that didn't make it through what turns out to be a motorcycle accident whilst she was pregnant. And this is where the episode sort of starts to, I don't know, we get a bit of explanation of what's been being seen, I guess. And it kind of turns from being a ghost story to something a little bit differently supernatural, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually really enjoyed the scene. I think it was really nice. And it's a really quiet thing. And her delivery was so good when she was talking through the initial premonition of her mum crying and then talking about her seeing that same thing at the hospital, that I thought there was a glitch and I was seeing the same thing again. Like she's like, it felt like she was bang on with hand against the glass, black mascara lines. And I guess that was the point, but it was good. Yeah. I really liked it. But yeah, very sad. The fact that her mum didn't say, "I came to see you," suggests that she had it was just a glimpse of what was to come.
And then it's fascinating that I started to dial the number.
Mm.
And that's when the motorcycle came off the road, and that's when the accident occurred. Which is where it's like, is it the premonition that causes the thing?
Mm. Yeah.
Which is really fascinating. Because it's like, okay, if I wasn't preoccupied with calling you, I'd have probably been more aware of the motorcycle coming off the road. If I wasn't preoccupied with these figures walking around the church, would I end up where I end up?
Well, no, because he is led up that staircase, isn't he? I thought that when you were talking about this earlier, he ends up that staircase because he sees that red hooded figure head up that way, doesn't he? He catches a glimpse of them heading up those stairs outside. So that's what.
And what's his motivation? What's his motivation to go
I don't
up
know.
those stairs?
I would not want to find.
I'd be like, probably
give that a swerve, especially then hearing the choking noises from the top of those stairs and going, I'm gonna go over these dodgy planks this evening. If there was ever an evening to go over some dodgy planks, it's tonight. but that is the thing, like with both of these situations, what is leading to what? Yeah, it's not. I guess it comes away from these things being a warning and more of a, tough luck. This is coming your way.
And I think the question around a premonition for me is like, it's an inescapable view of what is coming as opposed to a vision that allows you to change it. It's like, oh shit. Yeah. I'm fucked.
This is like when you hear that people who have suffered heart attacks wake up in the morning having a sense of dread that something is going to happen to them. And it often results in, often ends up with them indeed something very bad happening to them. Yeah. Almost like, something's coming. This is their bad feeling. And what's even weirder is this idea that her mum almost, there's like a two-way thing going on here, that her mum had a bad feeling that something was going to happen and then was projected. Her future reaction to that was then projected to that point there for Posey to experience. Yeah, very odd.
Yeah. And then is it just a question of storytelling?
Is that actually something that Posey did experience? Or is it something that she feels that she almost has a false memory of experiencing after it happened? And that's her brain's way of rationalizing and spotting patterns and creating a story for herself afterwards. 'Cause she's woken up in the hospital following a traumatic event. It's a very good chance that she hasn't completely correctly remembered what happened. So she's got that image in her mind of her mum at the window crying. She's then sort of superimposed that back onto the events of that evening. There's no guarantee that was actually a thing.
Yeah.
And have we got a similar thing going on here, that there's been some creepy stuff going on? I don't know.
What would be the similar creepy thing here?
Jasper he's had these premonitions of himself doing things, but it's not like he's joining something backwards and going, here's a memory that exists that I'm kind of misplacing. Because people misplacing memories is definitely a thing, but he hasn't formed those memories yet to misplace them.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No,
It's all over the shop.
There is no ghost here. I can assure you of that.
was a warning.
I was in two minds about this bit with the flashbacks because part of me felt a little bit like there's a bit of over explanation going on here. Are we not being given enough credit? But then another part of me, especially now we've talked this through, goes, actually, no, it needed that. It needed to tie that idea together that was himself doing these things. I think it would have been a bit too much to try and make that leap. Because it was, I quite enjoyed the quick flashback through all of those events over the course of the evening. I think that was useful. But yeah, he hacks out that corner of the wall and he reveals something wrapped in cloth, which we're assuming at this point is the jaw of St. Nick. And then Dick just wanders up, finds him hanged. Goes,
oh dear.
Oh, well, I never. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Great. What a year.
There's a man hanging by the neck from your bell tower, and your response is, well, I never. Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
But that's what makes it seem as though that throughout this entire thing, Dick has had some sort of ulterior motive here. And Dick possibly wants the same thing that Jasper does, but isn't willing to put in the work that Jasper's been doing with his rubbings.
This premonition would finally complete itself this year.
And here it is.
And does that mean he will be at peace?
Jasper's at peace now.
Hello?
As always, we'd love to hear from you if you have any reactions to this episode yourself, any theories, anything that you want to kind of reject, accept, or pick up on that we've talked about in this episode. Get in touch via email, aquietnightinsideno9@gmail.com, or through Twitter @AQNIN9. All right, take care. Have a great Christmas.
See you soon.
See you soon.
Bye-bye.
Merry Christmas.